News from Sophos, SonicWall, and Cytracom in our 2020 summer reading list with guest host Rayanne Buchianico, owner of ABC Solutions, plus a special guest interview with Darren Gottesmann from Ingram Micro on their SMB Alliance partner community. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 149, Ficus Farming for Fun and Profit. Hello, everyone. It's time for ChannelPro Weekly episode 149. My name is Matt Wedlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine program for you. And who are you? Well, if you don't know who you are, I'll tell you who you are, even though you shouldn't need me to tell you who you are, because you are you and you should know who you are. But if you don't, you are a VAR, you are an MSP, you are an IT integrator, you're an IT consultant, you are something or someone that has something to do with technology and businesses and things like that. And believe it or not, we actually have someone here on the show today who is one of those things just like you. And we will get to her in just a moment. But first, I would like to introduce my co-host. You've met him many times before. He is the man who makes black sport coats and jeans look ultra fashionable. Executive editor, Rich Freeman.
Ultra
Rich.
If I'm pulling off fashionable, that's thumbs up.
You have mastered the jeans and sport coat look. I thought for a while when I met you that that is the look I want, and then I realized I could just never do it as well as you. So I gave up.
Yeah, I came up with the least challenging look possible, and I have totally mastered it.
and it works in all situations. It works at conferences, it works at shows, it works on the podcast, it works everywhere, Rich. Well done. Well done. All right. I would also like to say that we are not alone. I love it when we're not alone. We have an awesome guest host. I've been waiting for the day we got her on. I'm so excited. She's finally here. She is the owner of ABC Solutions and one of those VAR, MSP, integrator, IT consultant people that we were talking about, Rayanne Buchianico. I screw it up every time, Rayanne. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's Buchianico, but that's all right. Just call me Rayanne. Makes life so much easier. Most of the people, if you've ever met me or, chances are you have not forgotten my name because it's pretty unique.
That's why I always say Rayanne and not your last name, because I am awful at pronouncing names. But what I am not awful at doing is saying how excited I am to have you here. I've been waiting for your name to pop up on the show list forever. So this is so exciting. But I know a lot about you because we've met many times before. We've had many conversations, but there are people here listening and watching that probably have never met you, and shame on them for never have meeting you. I can't believe that's possible. Please tell them about you, who you are, where you live, and so on and so forth.
Well, first of all, thank you, Matt and Rich, for having me here. I'm just as excited to be here as you apparently are to have me. So that's awesome. My name is Rayanne, and I own a little company called ABC Solutions, and we are a unique company in the IT space because we are an accounting firm, and we help MSPs understand their finances. And I know that sounds incredibly boring, but actually it's a lot of fun. And once I start talking about metrics and managing your profitability margins, and you can see my whole face light up. I just get, so yes, I'm one of those weird geeks that likes to play with numbers. And those are numbers on balance sheets and P&Ls and, making sure that they make sense and, what are they trying to tell me and what should I be doing? So that's probably why I'm here. And we've got a great little team. We're in, like I said, in Clearwater, Florida, and it is, hot as can be out there right now. It's probably well into the 90s and, storming every day. So I also am a partner in Sell My MSP, where that's a listing service. I don't know if you've heard of Sell My MSP, but we are a listing service, and we help match buyers and sellers of MSPs and IT companies meet up, and they can work their magic and do their thing.
So you can kind of understand. I mean, for me, from an editor's perspective, Rayanne is like a Swiss Army knife for me because she has all these different bits of skills and bits of expertise, right? Like how many managed services accounting experts do I know? I think one, and then there's Sell My MSP. She's somebody I can go to when I want to talk about mergers and acquisitions, and that's it's sellmymsp.com, right? Is actually the URL.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And you left out the third thing you do, which is also valuable and interesting, but you're kind of an auto task ninja.
I am. I am one of the few Autotask consultants out there in the world. And, so we specialize in working with Autotask in helping automate the systems and set up the workflow rules and help you understand the opportunity, help you understand the opportunities from, taking the opportunity all the way through to purchasing, procurement, and invoicing the customer, and how does this all integrate with your accounting system, and how does it integrate with your RMM, and how does it integrate with, all of these other tools that you're using. So, and I also have a podcast myself.
Oh, and tell us about that.
Well, so it's called PSA Impact. It's at psaimpact.net. And a friend of mine and I, Chris Tim, he's in the UK and I'm here in the US, and we are both Autotask consultants. And so we talk about how to take your PSA and really apply it into your MSP, and get the most out of it.
So with all of the things that you do, and a lot of the things that you do really puts you side by side with the partners as kind of a very important, crucial crutch in how they operate their business. I mean, knowing numbers and being on the accounting side puts you in a very, very, very close relationship. How much of your time do you spend doing any one of those particular things? And do you tend to do all of those things for one customer or just specific things?
It depends. Some of our clients, we do everything for, literally everything, from paying their bills, recording their weekly transactions, managing their financials, all the way to their income tax returns at the end of the year. Some of our clients we do everything for. Others may just reach out and say, hey, can you just help us get Autotask up and running? Because, we just bought into it and it's a big, big monster, and we don't know where to start, so then I will work with them on a weekly basis for maybe, 8 to 10 weeks and get them up and running and ready to go live on their new PSA. So it's hard to say how much time I spend on everything or each individual things, because as clients come and clients go, they all have different needs, and I just try to, find the way through.
So you, like I said, you are unique in several respects in terms of what you do and what you know and so on. I'm nearly 100% confident you are also the only person I know who read the entire CARES Act, the entire federal government act defining the Paycheck Protection Program and other benefit programs that were set up earlier in the year in response to the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, first of all, how long did that take, and what did that entail?
So, truth be told, I did not read all 880 pages. There were a couple of sections that just simply didn't apply to me, like the sections on the PPE equipment and how that was going to be doled out around, the country to different medical facilities and things of that nature. So I really focused on the PPP loans, the stimulus checks, the emergency economic injury disaster loan information, the forgiveness rules, and so on and so forth. So overall, I would say I read close to 600 of the 880 pages, which is probably more than anybody in Congress did. But
enough to give you an aneurysm.
So I started bright and early on the morning of March 28th because it got passed late at night on March 27th. And I read through the weekend, and I got through a few hundred pages through the weekend, and I started making notes, and then I started blogging some of the really important information. And then I would say it took me another week to make my way through the very dry remaining 400 pages. So it was fun. It was, it was a challenge, and me, I just love the challenge, but and I know that it just keeps changing every day, and every week I wake up and it's like, okay, there's a new regulation or there's a new guidance. So I'm just kind of sitting back right now, now that the PPP loan forgiveness Flexibility Act has been passed and is now law. I'm still waiting for the AICPA and the IRS and the SBA to come out with guidance on how to use it. So that's where we are with that today.
What in the early going, what kind of questions were you getting from customers about PPP, and what kind of uptake did you see in terms of people actually applying for and getting the money?
It took a long time for people to get the money unless they were banking with like a small bank, you know. So there was like a lot of the small community banks, and people that were applying there were getting funded like right away. You know, those that were banking with the larger banks, the Wells Fargo, Bank of America, regions here, you know, a lot of us, you know, were just ignored for the first 30 days until the second round of funding came out. Thank goodness that happened. And as a matter of fact, I think there's still some lending institutions that are still taking PPP loan applications for those that did not apply earlier. So some of the things that I was getting asked was, you know, can I get both the EIDL and the PPP? At first the answer was no, now the answer is yes. You know, can I get the $10,000 advance and still apply for the PPP? At first the answer was no, but now the answer is yes, but it's too late to get your $10,000 anyway because they've shut that one off unless you're an agricultural business. So, you know, I was getting a lot of questions like that. And how can I spend this money? And how can I track this money? And, you know, what sort of documentation will I need? So a lot of those very, you know, transactional based questions, like what do I need to do? You know, I want this money. I want to be able to, you know, use it for this, or or use it for that. And I don't want to break any rules. And I want to make sure that I can still get my forgiveness. What do I do? That was the majority of the questions. Now I'm getting questions about the economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL, because those proceeds are starting to pour into bank accounts. Last month it was PPP proceeds. This month it's the EIDL proceeds. And you know, and now here come the questions of what can I use this money for? You know, so and just to give you a quick answer, you cannot pay off mortgages, you cannot refinance long-term debt. You know, you can pay off current debt, your accounts payable, your credit cards, you know, your short-term lines of credit. So, you know, you can get yourself out of a lot of debt with these, but you cannot go out and buy a new piece of property. Don't go out and buy a boat, you know, or that, you know, really awesome race car that you've always had your eye on. You cannot use that money for this. It must be used for working capital.
So if you have a ficus in your office, does that qualify you as an agricultural business?
No, but that's a great question.
Can you use the money in the EIDL to buy a ficus to make you an agriculture business?
So you can, if you can qualify for the EIDL, you know, the only thing is that you're just not going to get that advance because the advance money is gone. But you may still apply for the EIDL loan itself. And the advance, which started out at $10,000 for everybody, got changed to $1,000 per employee. So if you had under 10 employees, you did not receive the $10,000. But that advance money is going to reduce your PPP loan forgiveness. So you're probably better off without it. Just saying.
Talk a little bit about the forgiveness aspect of PPP, and I mean how that works and what maybe channel pros kind of need to understand about that. Because I guess we're past the point now where people who are going to get the money have the money. So now we're kind of getting into the later phases of things with that, where the forgiveness maybe comes into play. What should people know about how that piece of the law works?
So they haven't come out with the exact guidance on how the forgiveness works. But there is an application out there. It's the first draft, and it was before the Flexibility Act came out. And I started working up a spreadsheet, you know, that I wanted to hand out to all of the MSPs, you know, so that they could help calculate their stuff. But then, of course, they changed the rules on me again. So, you know, could you clarify your question just a little bit for me? You know, what pieces are you looking to understand better?
Well, I mean, so who gets forgiveness, if you will? I mean, what, you know, are there conditions that somebody needs to be aware they need to meet in order for that to be applicable to them?
Oh, you mean like the full-time equivalent employee headcount type of thing. So that even that's not clear any longer whether or not that still applies. So before the new Flexibility Act was passed, you could not reduce your headcount from your January employee headcount, you know, to the covered period, the 8-week period. The 8-week period has now been extended over to 24 weeks. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we have to hold on to all of these employees for 24 weeks, whether or not we still have money in the bank in order to pay them? Because the PPP loan money was only designed to get you by for, you know, 8 to 10 weeks, not 24, right? So that's one of those things that we're still waiting on clarification for. You must also now use that PPP loan money for a minimum of 60% of your payroll costs, as opposed to the earlier requirements of 75%. And so there's more flexibility in what you can do with the other 40% of that money. However, since the 8-week period is now scheduled out to 24 weeks, chances are most of the people are going to use 100% of it on payroll anyway. So as long as you can stay within the guidelines, and once we get some clarification on what's going on with that headcount for the full-time equivalent employees, you know, then I think we'll be in a much better place to answer that question. And I'm hoping that, you know, once I do get those answers, you know, I can submit a blog post or something to ChannelPro, so you can publish it out. That would be great.
Would love to do that, yeah. So please keep in touch about that. You know, I read an article just, I think, within the last 24 hours or so about there being something like $130 billion worth of money that was appropriated for PPP and has not actually been claimed. I mean, to what extent do you think that's because people don't know how to get the money, or they're dealing with big banks and, you know, have had some of those roadblock issues you were talking about? Or how much of it is just the lack of clarity around some of these fairly central issues that you're talking about?
I have quite a few clients that are, you know, the sole proprietors, Schedule C people. They don't have any payroll. They assume that they're not eligible for the PPP loan, and they don't understand the rules about it. So they will reach out and say, hey, can I get one? I'm hearing other people get this, you know, but how do I do this? You know, and how is this going to get, you know, calculated out? So I have no doubt, if I have a handful of clients that don't understand that their eligibility level, I have no doubt there are hundreds of millions of other people out there also not understanding that this money's available to them.
So one question on the enforcement side, you said, you know, as long as you stay within the guidelines, and I'm a person who likes to stay within the guidelines. I think that's a good thing to do, but how are they enforcing how you spend the money?
So at this moment in time, it's voluntary compliance is what they call it. So you are signing your name under oath that you absolutely plan to use this money appropriately. So for forgiveness, though, you should be prepared to you know, produce the documentation. They're going to want to see the payroll records. They're going to want to see your payroll tax returns. They're going to want to see your rent bills, your utility bills, your telephone bills, your receipts for any expense that you are claiming for forgiveness. So I doubt that banks will take your word for it just from a signature, but they do have a big long list of documentation that you need to provide. There is also some documentation that you need to keep that you do not need to provide, such as trying to rehire an employee who refuses to come back to work because they're making more money on unemployment. So you should keep that documentation, but you don't want to submit that.
Gotcha. Interesting stuff. Well, I'm absolutely flabbergasted that you voluntarily chose to read even 100 of those 800 million pages of the act. And if there is a person out there who can produce some kind of ribbon or medal for Rayanne on on that stellar achievement, maybe a little trophy.
I really don't need a trophy, really.
So deserved and earned, Rayanne, I have to tell you. Well, anyway, we're so excited that you're here, and we've got some news stories that we're going to go through with you with us. We'll be interested to get your take on those. We're going to talk about our ChannelPro Book Club Summer 2020 edition. We've talked about various books in the past. Colleen Fry always does a great job kind of putting together a list of great summer reading. So we're going to talk about that. We have an interview with Darren Gottesmann we're going to go to. That'll be great. And of course, we'll have some of our regular show features as well. And Rayanne is along for the ride. So strap in.
Let's go.
It's going to be fun. Rich, the news to you, Sophos adds threat hunting and remediation to what?
So what they have done, they have rolled out a new version of their endpoint detection and response solution, their EDR tool. They had a 1.0 version before. They have now added some significant functionality that we'll talk about. I had an opportunity to interview Dan Schappa, their chief product officer, about that. He was on the podcast with us just a few episodes ago. And early on in that interview, I asked him, how significant an upgrade is this? And I will quote from the article his response to that question. He said, "This is the most significant upgrade of any product we've ever had. It's really that significant." So I mean, from his perspective, this is kind of huge. What they did was take a relatively, like a 1.0, relatively crude EDR kind of tool, and add some fairly significant functionality to it that splits up across the detect and the response piece of EDR. And so on the detect side of things, they have this new feature that they call Live Discover. It does automated detection like you would expect EDR solutions to do. What's a little bit different about it, though, is it has some very sophisticated querying capabilities. So, from a threat hunting standpoint, even if you're not an expert threat hunter yourself, there's a querying tool you can use to look at 90 days worth of data collected from all your endpoints. As I understand it, that's significantly more information than a lot of EDR tools hang on to. You can look at 3 months basically of data. It uses the SQL querying language, so you don't have to learn some new language to create these threat hunting queries. It's got the kind of auto population to, if you're setting up a formula in Excel will kind of suggest what you might want to type next. The Sophos tool will do that as well, so that, even if your SQL skills aren't awesome, you can actually kind of use this tool to look around and find out, do I have ports open? Are people deploying browser extensions that they shouldn't have on their PC? There are ways to find all this stuff. And it ties into, this is a capability that Sophos has offered before, but it ties into this ability they offer to forward something. So you do some threat hunting, you find a file that's suspicious, you don't know what it is, you can send that off to Sophos Labs, and they have machine learning-based tools that will inspect it for you and let you know, yeah, that's a problem, could be a problem, not a problem. And then on the live response side, so if you find out that you do indeed have there's been a breach, you've got a malicious file on the network or whatever, and you need to deal with that, they've created a command line interface-based tool that you can use to go ahead and rectify that situation. And what's kind of interesting about that is it's almost like a mini RMM system. And I mean, they have no aspirations I'm aware of to actually turn it into an RMM tool. But the idea is, rather than you having to go off to a different interface now and sort of put these recommended mitigation measures into place, you can just do it inside the EDR tool through this command line interface. Just connect to the server that's been infected and fix the problem there. And some other, there are some other interesting features and solutions in there, but that's kind of, those are the two big things that they've added to the EDR tool. And from a Sophos perspective, it takes something that gave you some basic EDR functionality and turns it into a much more robust solution.
And for these kinds of threats, it makes far more sense to go hunting with a SQL query than a shotgun, for example. So that's good that they've got the right tool set here for those folks.
I'm sure they thought that through thoroughly. They probably whiteboarded it both ways.
They did. There was an interesting stat in here that I wanted to mention, and I want to get Rayanne's take on this because you work with a lot of different MSPs and a lot of customers. And it says 47% of those who work for businesses with 100 to 1,000 employees said their organization was struck by ransomware last year. Is it surprising that it is that prevalent?
That doesn't surprise me at all. We know that a number of
Rayanne, she needs a glass of water or something.
I know. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So we know that a number of MSPs were targeted last year, and they got into their RMM tool, took down a number of their customers. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Ransomware, and ransomware attacks have been, on the uptick. And even InfraGard, are you familiar with InfraGard? So they've taken, steps to inform the public about, the ransomware attacks from foreign entities and foreign companies, on US computers. So most of my clients have taken on, most of my clients have taken on security as a service, as a core feature of their offerings.
Now, Rich, this is an upgrade to their system. It didn't say anything in here about like, oh, it's an upgrade, but it's like you got to pay more per month or per seat. This is just included with the product. Nobody has to do anything. It's just going to be there.
Correct. And I should point out, actually, when we say, included with the product, Sophos doesn't actually just sell a standalone EDR tool. They have an EDR solution, but they actually embed it. They sort of bundle it with Intercept X, which is their endpoint security solution. And there are different versions of Intercept X for PCs and for servers. There are versions or editions of Intercept X, both for PCs and for servers, that include the EDR tool. And those versions cost more than the versions without the EDR tool. But if you are a subscriber to a version of Intercept X that includes EDR now, you're just getting this new functionality.
Very cool. Well, it'll be interesting to see if people take advantage of it and like the new Live Discover feature. Hopefully that'll help protect their customers more. Now, we're going to put a link to this article and all of the articles that we're going to talk about on the site, because we're kind of skimming the surface, and there's more information in this news release that you should probably go and read, but we're just going to scratch the surface here a little bit as we discuss. But I think we're going to move on to our next story, which is about SonicWall. And this is something we've talked about before, Rich, that we're seeing more and more of, which is software-defined networking. So Sophos has a branch office solution. Is that correct?
Or SonicWall does. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I said. I was looking at the wrong line there when I said that, because you don't put spaces in the show sheet, Rich, like line breaks, which would be really helpful when I'm looking at it and I see two company names that start with the letter S, and then I don't say the wrong one. But yes, you're right. SonicWall. SophOWall. I'm gonna merge the company.
I always mix the two of them up. When I mean SonicWall when I say Sophos, and I mean Sophos when I always do it. So you're not alone.
I'm initiating a corporate merger right now. It is now going to be called SophOWall or Sonicos. Going forward forever.
You know what,
Rich? Please go ahead.
Sonicos, if I'm not mistaken, is actually the name of their operating system. I think that name has been used, but yeah. So this is a case, I guess, of depending on how you look at it, fortunate or unfortunate timing. So the folks at SonicWall, saw a need for an opportunity to create a solution that would make it very, very easy, both for large businesses and small businesses, to deploy a software-defined network. So if you're a big business and you've got remote offices, branch offices, and you're looking for some way to roll software-defined networking out to all those different locations that doesn't involve rolling 1,000 trucks, it would be great to have some sort of centralized tool that allows you to do that. If you're a smaller business and you just are looking for an easy way to get SDN out there, it would also be good to or if you're an MSP who supports small businesses and you want to be able to do that to multiple customers through a single console, again, it would be great if there was a tool that would make that easier for you. So they went about, I don't know how long it's been they've been working on this, but for quite a number of months, they've been working on a solution that takes some existing SonicWall products and adds a little bit of new stuff. So they took their existing management consoles. They have one that's on-prem and one that's in the cloud. They took those, they took their firewalls and wireless access points. They actually created a new family of switches. So SonicWall has partnered with switch manufacturers in the past, but they've never really made their own switches. Now they do, and they did it specifically so that the switches could work with the firewalls and the wireless access points and the centralized management tool, and the whole thing could kind of integrate together and work together as a complete secure software-defined networking solution for small businesses or branch offices. The other thing that they did to make all of this very easy and you know, eliminate the need for all those truck rolls is add a whole bunch of new zero-touch provisioning functionality. So they had some zero-touch functionality in some of their products before, but they significantly kind of beefed that up. And so again, they were planning to do this anyway, but along comes COVID-19. And all of a sudden, you've got a lot of channel pros out there who are a little bit leery. They're, at a minimum, they're trying to minimize unnecessary visits to customer sites. And here's a tool that allows you, it's zero touch. You can just mail the boxes off to your customer. All they have to do is plug that in. The device will identify itself over the internet to the management interface. Everything just sort of sets itself, configures itself, it sets itself up, configures itself, and it's ready to go. There's no need really to send anybody out to the customer site. So it actually is a very timely solution for the moment that we're in now. And then the SonicWall folks like to point out that the other distinctive thing, unfortunately, about the moment we're in right now is, in addition to a pandemic, there's a recession going on. And the efficiency that this enables in terms of reducing travel time, consolidating management through a single interface will help companies save money as well. So, you know, they have something that really is kind of well suited to needs out there right now that they didn't necessarily know would be the case when they first came up with the idea.
It does seem very well timed, I have to say, and kudos to them for that. So, Rayanne, are you seeing a lot more of software-defined networking with your clients?
No, but you know, as a matter of fact, I wasn't even aware of this article until I read it, you know, or this product, and it's actually really really cool. I wonder, you know, how well does it integrate with the RMM tools, you know, or because I know that SonicWall has its own platform where you can go in and you can manage these, and then I guess at that point you connect it to the RMM so that you can pick up the configuration item, you know, and start pulling some, you know, tickets and information from there, or do you just use the SonicWall, you know, platform? I did not know.
You know, it's a great question. I would have to kind of go back, and so I mean, as a little bit of context here, you know, SonicWall views this as a solution that a corporate IT department could use, or an MSP could use, an MSSP could use. And as a little bit of background there, I mean, SonicWall is in the, and a lot of security companies are doing this, but SonicWall in particular is really kind of trying to pull MSPs and MSSPs into its channel right now. And I believe it was last December, they introduced a new sort of version or added some capabilities to the management tools that would make them, you know, more attractive to MSPs and MSSPs. Like I believe that was when they added multi-tenant functionality and some of the other things that those folks would need. You know, I would have to go back and look at my coverage of that to refresh my memory. I'm almost positive that they were talking about integration with RMM at that point, but I don't know where that stands or which tools, how quickly that's coming along, anything like that.
So, Rich, you also said that this is the first time SonicWall has actually produced their own switch. Now, are they working with a company that generally builds switches and kind of rolling in some custom features, or like a white label situation, or are they do they design these from the ground up themselves?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know. You know, I believe, my guess would be that they did design it from the ground up, although you could imagine a scenario where they're taking some generic hardware and incorporating their own software. But I mean, the reason I say that they probably did do it from the ground up is that these, in a sense, these switches really are like single-purpose devices. I mean, you know, SonicWall is not interested in getting into the network switch business in a sense. They want to have a complete software-defined branch solution, and they decided we can't do that without a switch. So they created a switch that will fit into the solution, and they don't, you know, there will probably be people who just buy the switch because it's from SonicWall and they need a switch, but they're not really interested in taking on that market. They're just interested in filling a gap that they needed to fill in order for the solution to work. And so it's very specific to their solution, integrating with their other tools and their software and so on. You would think that means they just built the whole thing themselves.
Right, so the customer, the end user customer, right, receives the switch in the box in the mail, and they walk it over, and they get their MSP on the phone and says, okay, it's here. And the MSP says, okay, just open the box, follow the instructions, plug it in where it says to plug it in, and let me know when it's done, and I'll take it from there, right?
You lost the customer at open the box.
Yeah.
How do I do that exactly? You get one of those box cutters.
Remove the tape.
Oh, what? Yeah.
Start with the tape.
But it's so sticky, the tape. Yeah, no, it seems like it should be a relatively straightforward process to walk a customer through opening a box and plugging in a bunch of cables. But, you know, is it now, would you assume that in that scenario, Rich, that the business already has a switch there that they're replacing with this newer, better thing? Because if that existing switch isn't there and it's all the networking isn't already centralized, you would have to send a truck out, right?
Probably, yeah. I don't know. It's all software defined, so maybe not. But yeah, I mean, you know, the scenarios where that would be the case, though, where there's nothing existing, is I guess, you know, somebody moving to a new office or setting up a new satellite location or something like that. That would be, you know, greenfield. But otherwise, yeah, you would assume otherwise. Any office has a network, therefore there's probably a switch or two there.
There's probably a switch in there already. Yeah, that would make sense. Well, cool. Well, I don't have any other questions on this, so why don't we roll on to our third story, which is about a company who we've talked about before, and they're always doing new and interesting things in the VoIP unified communication space. Cytracom has some third-party integration features. They call it an entire platform. Rich, tell us about that. How interesting.
Yeah, this is interesting, and you know, they are not necessarily the only unified communications or VoIP company out there to do this kind of thing. But you know, if you're in a call, you're using a VoIP system or a unified communication system, and a call comes in from a customer, it sure would be handy to have very rapid, easy access to information about that customer. And if the customer is calling about a service ticket, you're an MSP and they're calling about a service ticket, you know, what's the status of that ticket? What's the ticket about? In a lot of VoIP systems, and previously in the Cytracom system, you had to jump into a different solution to kind of get the answers to those questions. What they have done at Cytracom is roll out functionality now that they are calling Discover, that automatically imports information from CRM and PSA systems, and as we'll talk about in a moment, eventually some other systems, but it pulls information from those external applications into the Cytracom interface, so that as you're talking to the customer and looking at information about the call, you can also get information about whatever it is that they're calling you about, or just, you know, how much business they've done with you in the past, what kind of deals might be pending right now if you're in a sales role or something like that. They started out, so they have introduced that functionality. They have also created an app marketplace, which is where you as a Cytracom user can go to decide which third-party solutions you're going to integrate with. Right now, the only two integrations available are with ConnectWise Manage and HubSpot, but they've got a bunch more coming. Autotask, IT Glue, Zendesk, Microsoft 365/Office 365, which you know, obviously includes Teams, Dynamic CRM, Salesforce. So they've got a bunch that are on the roadmap in development, coming relatively soon. And then the thought is that eventually there will be probably a few dozen of these different apps in the marketplace that you can choose to connect to. And you know, you can import information into the interface from these systems. If you need more detailed information, you can jump out to those solutions and really kind of drill into the details too, if you want to do that. And like I said, you know, they're not necessarily the first people to do this. I couldn't possibly speak to the nuances and the nitty gritty and so on. I know BVoIP has a solution called OneStream that is, you know, they describe it as an integration platform, and it kind of does the same sort of thing. I'm sure there are other vendors out there who have something like that, but you can certainly appreciate the power of the concept and how useful that would be for somebody who's answering a lot of calls.
Absolutely. Now, there's also some partner program changes with this as well.
Yeah, it was actually a big, so I should say, I mean, last week, Cytracom held their big annual partner event. It's called Simplify. You know, it was originally going to be in person. They did it virtually. So they announced a bunch of things in conjunction with Simplify. That the biggest piece of news was this new integration functionality. But yeah, they also did a pretty major upgrade to their partner program. In the past, basically, it was essentially a very simple one-tier kind of program, and everybody got 20% margins. They have now introduced a new kind of 4-tier structure with different requirements to work your way up. Those requirements are all defined by points. So there's a sort of points-based system here where you're collecting points for various activities. Those activities include closing deals, but there's more to it than that. If you attended Simplify, for example, you got some points for that. If you get a certification or complete an education course, you'll get points for that. They're really looking, they absolutely want to drive revenue, but they're really looking to kind of measure engagement with Cytracom. More engaged you are, the more points you get, the higher you climb in the program. And everybody starts out in the program at the, you know, the legacy 20% margin level, but they work their way up from there. So I think it's 22% when you make it to tier 2 and 25% when you make it to tier 3. And then if you make it all the way to the 4th tier, you're getting a 30% margin. And in fact, I don't understand exactly how they did this, but they kind of looked at their existing partner base and made some decisions about who should start out at tier 1 versus tier 2 versus tier 3. And there were some Cytracom partners, their very best partners, who, you know, literally woke up one morning and were suddenly getting 30% margins because Cytracom decided, yeah, we're going to start these guys out at level 4. So I think, you know, pretty significant upgrade to that program.
Now, did they actually call them tier 1, tier 2, or did they like do the scale of precious metals or the precious gems level, like the, you know, silver, gold, platinum, that kind of thing?
So right now they're just calling it tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I asked about that, and I got an answer that sort of hinted, you know, we're thinking we might attach names down the road, but right now it's just tier 1, tier 2, etc.
Rayanne, would you be more excited if they had defined names for these levels to make people feel important?
I don't think that would excite me at all, really. You know, I'm good with tier 1 through tier 4. You know, I think the platinum, gold, you know, silver, bronze thing has been done to death. So no, I'm actually more excited that they didn't use the precious metals for their tiers. But you know, I just have to say, you know, any tool that can be used to streamline that sales process or the opportunity tracking process, you know, is probably welcome. So if you are a Cytracom user, you know, and you're using, you know, your PSA or one of the external, you know, lead tracking system, Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever, you know, just to have that information at your fingertips when somebody's calling, you know the customer, you can see the caller ID coming in, right? So here comes the call. You're like, oh, it's Bob Smith. And what is his problem today? You know, before you even pick up the phone, there should be that ticket right in front of you saying, here's Bob Smith, and he's calling because he still can't print, you know, or whatever the problem is. You know, just
you still couldn't open the box either.
Yeah,
that's true, right? He may still be having trouble finding, you know, the pair of scissors to cut through the tape. You know, it could be anything. But, you know, if that information is right there on your screen because you have that seamless integration, you know, just think of the amount of time, you know, and the level of service that you could provide to your customers just by saying, hey, Bob, you're just on my list of people to call, you know, and I'm right here, you know, to help you with that printer problem or, you know, the tape removal, whatever the issue is. But so I think these integrations are great, you know, and they should continue to focus a lot of their, you know, efforts in improving these integrations so that, you know, that if there's a two-way street back and forth between the PSA, you can type your notes in while you're on the phone, it lands right back, you know, into your PSA, onto the ticket, and now you've got a follow-up.
It seems like in the quest for the single pane of glass, the more and more companies that focus on integration are the ones that I think are going to be more successful in the market. Would you say that's probably true, Rayanne?
I would absolutely say that, you know, because no one tool does everything, right? But we need a lot of different things. And if we can get the pieces to fit together and to work together and communicate and play nicely together, you know, it's just going to make our jobs easier. And, you know, in a difficult market, such as a recession, you know, people are going to be very, you know, careful as to where they put their money. So it has to add value to them, you know, in order for them to even, you know, pick up the check to write, to, you know, to pay you for it. So, so they have to come up with, you know, useful tools like this, actual useful tools that can be used, and, you know, you can produce an ROI on it.
And, you know, the other thing about doing business in a recession is, you know, productivity is always important, but it's especially important now. You're really trying to be as efficient as possible. And so if you're making technicians more productive because they don't have to keep, you know, swiveling into different solutions to look up information, that's something that's important too.
And it will be a matter of time before there's an IoT integration to water the ficus when Bob Smith calls. So we can all look forward to that as well.
I really do want that, because more times than not, my poor plants, they sit on the windowsill and they die a slow and painful death, you know, until somebody feels sorry for me and comes around and waters them.
Yes, plants do like water, as we've learned, and they keep. They're supposed to also supposedly reduce stress, so you should definitely try to keep them alive, because looking at dying plants is probably adding to the stress, not helping.
That's a good point. I will work on that, Matt.
Indeed. All right, so we're going to move on. I think that's it for news, right, Rich? And like I said, folks, there's some more in this article here on the Cytracom story that it's going to talk about some of the various integrations they're planning, and some links there to other information. Go to the show notes page for episode 149, or if you're watching on YouTube, open up the description area, and we got links to all these stories in there, so you can go and learn, you know, all of the fine nitty-gritty details that we didn't necessarily cover here on the show. Rich, we're going to move on to our one story that we have, and we've done several of these now at this point. So Colleen Fry does a book list for reading for MSPs to be helpful. What's the criteria of the book list? How does she pick these? And then I think we should probably pick a couple of them to chat about.
Yeah, so Colleen is, I mean, she runs a lot of different things at ChannelPro, but one of the things that is really just entirely in her hands is our peer-to-peer column. So in every issue of our monthly magazine, we profile somebody in the channel, and they share a best practice with our readers, and Colleen does all that. So she has this list of, you know, thought leaders within the channel she knows, and she reaches out to people. I think, you know, 100% of the folks in this article we're talking about here were at one point or another in a peer-to-peer article, and she just asked them, you know, what book should your peers be reading? What book have you read either this year or just in the past that has been really helpful or really influential? I should say we've been doing, you know, once a year we used to do this summer reading list article in, you know, like the June or the July issue every year. But it was Colleen who kind of thought, you know, why are we only doing this once a year, and turned that once a year thing into the ChannelPro Book Club. And so, you know, she will periodically throughout the year online provide some of these kind of book tips from readers. But then we also still continue to do that once a year thing inside the magazine, and that showed up in the June issue. That's what we're talking about here.
I like it. And there's 10 picks here, I believe, 9 or 10 picks here. Would you like to highlight any of them? I know, Rayanne, I know you looked through the list, and there was some questions. It's not just like these are not books just by MSPs. The criteria is a book useful to MSPs, right?
Yeah, correct, exactly. Yeah, okay. I mean, so and yeah, but they're all business books, I would say. But yeah, I mean, they're not necessarily IT specific.
Okay, cool. So Ran, I'll give the first pick to you. You can highlight one that you looked at the list and looked interesting. Maybe you've read. Why don't you pick one to talk about?
I have not read any of these books. So, but the first one I think I'm going to jump on is the Emotional Intelligence 2.0. So the Emotional Intelligence Quotient, right, or the EQ, it's one of those concepts I've heard people talk about, and it's always been on my list of books to read. So now there's a 2.0 out, and I think that I'm going to have to pull this book. There's actually quite a few on this list, but that I really, really want to read. So they're going to be on my summer reading list for sure. But I think Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is going to be probably the first one, because it really helps you grow as a leader, to understand what your people are going through and how you react to them and how you interact with them, really helps you stand out, to make people want, to lead the company, and go forward. So, I'm looking forward to that. As my company continues to grow, I'm always open to new leadership ideas.
Very cool. Rich, what in this list is going to make it into your Amazon and or Barnes & Noble shopping list?
Well, I'll tell you about one I'm kind of curious about. I just never heard of before, and I'm just interested to know more about it. It's a book called Turn the Ship Around. And it's a true story. It's written by a guy who was a captain in the Navy. He was handed command of a submarine. And I mean, this was basically, the worst submarine in the Navy when he was given this post. That, very low morale, very low performance. He was handed this poorly performing team that, spends its time underwater, cut off from the rest of the world. Just a very difficult position to be in, to turn that situation around. And the book basically is about how he did that. And I know very little about it other than that he successfully turned that culture around and turned this into a very effectively performing crew. I would be really interested to know how. What were the techniques that worked, and how might those be applicable to somebody who is maybe having a problem within their business about getting people performing together, motivated, etc.
And so a question to both of you. If you were going to turn a ship around, are you more likely to turn it to the port side or the starboard side?
Well, I'm left-handed, so I think I'm going port.
Rayanne?
Well, see, and I've always favored starboard. So yeah, so I'm going right.
I'm a starboard man myself. So it's good to see I have a kindred spirit. So I was also going to choose that book, Rich, but fortunately for me, because I love submarines and navals and ships and stuff. But I have a backup. I was prepared in case one of you stole my story, because that's the problem when you go last, is that people take the wind out of your sails or the port out of your sub, if that's possible. I don't know. Do you take the water out of the no? Let's not even go down that path. So my book pick that also looked interesting is Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Medcalf. It's kind of a fictional story. But it's about a boy who wants to be a samurai warrior. And even if I don't get the point of the book, I like samurai warriors and Japanese ninja culture. So let's just roll with that. Rand, do you like samurai ninjas?
Who doesn't like a samurai ninja? I mean, do you ever remember way back when the Japanese B movies, the Kung Fu B movies, I used to love that stuff.
Absolutely. So, and for those who, I always got enamored with that old ancient samurai kind of culture. There was a game I used to play on the NES, Rich. I'm surprised you're not you're not surprised I'm going to talk about a video game. It was called Nobunaga's Ambition. And it was originally a PC game, and then I had the version on NES, and I played the crap out of that game. It was very basic. It's all like, it was a kind of a menu-driven, build your skills, but like the whole goal was to like take over the Asian continent and stuff like that. But it was fun, and it made me like Samurai Ninjas. Okay, I think we're done with Samurai Ninjas. Well, there's 9 other there's other books on this list, folks, and I highly encourage you to go and find the ChannelPro Book Club Summer 2020 edition. Read through some of the other books on here. They're all great choices. I'm sure if you picked 1 or 2 of them, it would go a long way to helping you in your life or with your business, or if anything, it just gives you something to do on a summer day outside with a glass of lemonade and a good book. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have an interview that we're going to cut to an interview that Rich and I recorded last week. It's a great interview. It's with Darren Gottesmann, the director of SMB sales for North America at Ingram Micro. We're going to talk about their alliance partner community and a whole bunch of other stuff. It is well worth listening to or watching. So go do that, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. We've got a great special interview guest lined up for you today. We're going to talk about Ingram's SMB Channel Alliance and a whole bunch of things like that. So please welcome the Director of Sales of SMB for the U.S. at Ingram Micro, Darren Gottesmann. Welcome, Darren.
Thank you so much, Matt. Great to be here.
We're very, very glad to have you here with us today to talk about this. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about you and like where you're from?
Yeah, sure. I'm based in New Jersey, about 20 minutes from Manhattan. I travel to Buffalo every month, a few times a month, around the entire country. I have clients everywhere. And I've been with Ingram Micro now for 16 years, half the time as a field rep and a business development rep, and half the time as a director. Prior to that, I had the privilege of working at a very nice software company called Computer Associates for many years. And I've gotten to see the channel now from the lens of the distributor, the manufacturer, and also obviously the SMB partners.
That's awesome. What a great history you have to see you progressing and winding up at Ingram. Now, at Ingram, you run the SMB Alliance community. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
That's correct. Yes, thank you. So the SMB Alliance community it's one of 2 communities at Ingram Micro, and it's a chance for the SMB partners to get together and form strategic connections, relationships, and work with Ingram Micro, our vendor community, and each other. Right now, we have 270 partners that are spread around the U.S. They get together frequently throughout the year, and I get into some of the programs with you if you like. But it really is a networking group, and it's really based on the interests of, you know what, I'm a business owner. I'm in the SMB marketplace. I want to connect to others to see what they're doing. I want to share the best practices that I have, and I want to learn from other people. So it really is a networking group, and it really is an ecosystem. And it's interesting because it's not just, hey, we're partners, but we're also engaging in the entire ecosystem of the distributor and all their resources, and then also the manufacturers and all their resources. So it's a very powerful group of people.
So Darren, folks who are watching this on video will see some signage behind you there for SMB Alliance Unplugged. That is the event, the biggest event. You do a number of different events across the course of the year, but the biggest one you do annually in Buffalo is your Unplugged event, which is taking place next week. It will be virtual, of course, because all events are virtual these days. But I have been out to Buffalo to attend the last few Unplugged events, and they're really great shows. But looking ahead, you know, we're actually recording this before that event happens. People are going to be hearing this or watching this interview after it has happened. So when you get up in front of the SMB Alliance members and talk to them, you know, what are some of the themes you're going to hit on? What's sort of the message you're going to bring to the SMB Alliance membership right now at this kind of unusual time in the history of the channel?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. First, let me say, Rich and Matt, congratulations on your virtual event. I sat in on as a sponsor of ChannelPro's forum, the virtual DC event, and I thought that was awesome. So as we're getting into the new world of the virtual events, I certainly looked at you guys to get a feel of what you were doing, and I was very impressed. So congrats on a nice success there. We're a proud sponsor of ChannelPro. And, you know, we thought about this event a lot, and we were thinking about waiting to try to do it in person in August, but we said, you know what, we could always do another event. We want to get the content out there. And we did have an agenda, and there's certain themes that are very relevant either before COVID and even during this period of time. So some of the themes that we got feedback that have been consistent from our membership for a long time are public speaking. Number one is public speaking. And we have a lot of great businessmen and women that are tremendous engineers, and they're just brilliant one-on-one. But then when they're put in a situation where they have to speak in front of an audience, like any of us, it changes the tactics, it changes the strategy, there's nerves. So we always were talking about, what can we do to help our membership get introduced to public speaking, and now more than ever, virtual public speaking. So as I'm talking to you right now, I'm putting the picture of you kind of close to my camera, and I learned this trick so I could kind of look as if I'm talking to the audience. In the past, I was looking over in the corner. I mean, these little tips and tricks are a big deal. So that's one of the topics, and that's going to be with Dave Heumann, which he's just a brilliant master of communication, and we're going to have him come speak with us. And that topic is topical at any point in business, but now virtually, a lot of folks don't have the experience that you might have, Rich. That's one topic. We have our consultants from A&G talking about how to grow your business and how to really understand your revenue growth versus your profitability growth in changing times. And also, how do you position your company for mergers and acquisitions? These are topics that we always hear. Folks are either at the beginning of their journey or towards the end. And how do you either go out there and acquire strategically, or how do you position yourself to be acquired? And how do you have a realistic idea of what that business that you've worked for, in some case, a lifetime is worth? So that's another topic. On top of that, we have a great comedian and educator and an author, Megan Johnson, talking about generations in the workplace. And for those folks that are listening, you might look around your office and say, you know what, I have 3 different generations here. There's a lot of funny types of nuances that we could discuss. Matt and I were just discussing Nintendo and Atari before we got onto this. And there's lots of fun connectors. But what if there's a generation gap? And what if you don't have those connectors to make, the conversation happen or to be drawn to each other? How do you go out there and get different generations with different perspectives that are important for your business overall? And also, what are the differences in communication and management style? Management style is huge. How do you motivate somebody? How do folks like to respond? And for those folks listening to me that coach sports for their kids or, any family members, they know that different age groups require different management of these sports teams, but that also carries through to business. How do you manage your workers and what is the motivation there? So those are 3 big topics. We're going to have Kirk Robinson speak, Susan O'Sullivan, which I know the industry is very familiar with. We're going to have our resources, Kelly Sander and Kelly Fox, talk about, what they're doing for the membership. And we just have some great content. It's a lot of fun. We actually have a garage band playing during the breaks. We have all of our vendor partners that we're appreciative of. They're going to have a chance to speak to the audience, and we're going to be giving away a lot of fun stuff.
Did the band actually bring the garage?
Did they bring the garage? They're going to be in the garage when they're jamming. So we got them in the garage, and they might be breaking some rules on social distancing, but they're awesome. We love them. The name of the band is Broke, and the guys are just rock and roll.
Darren, we're coming up. We're about a month away from the midpoint of the year, and coming into 2020, there is precisely nobody who anticipated how this year was going to unfold.
Yeah.
As you're talking to SMB Alliance members, what are you hearing from them? What are they experiencing now, both in terms of the pandemic and what that's meant for them and their customers, and in terms of the recession resulting from the pandemic and the impact it's having on their business?
Yeah, that's a very good question, very serious question. So what I would say is this: from our perspective, we're still seeing growth. So our partners in SMB Alliance and SMB overall are growing, and they're growing strong. Now they are facing different types of issues, right? I mean, everybody that's working from home, it's slowing down projects. Now they're also having to become remote managers, and certain things are slowing down. And obviously folks are worried about, if someone can't get to the office, how are they going to pay us, right? So those are the obvious concerns that I think everybody has. But at the same time, it does open up opportunity. And we are very thankful that we're in this industry that's providing, one of the necessities of the world, which is technology, work from home, to keep the economy going. And working from home setups, opens up a huge opportunity. I think we shifted and we had to stop and say, okay, now how do we get an entire workforce in America that's in this industry working from home? That's huge opportunities. Right now it's about product availability and really becoming the authorities of how to implement that solution. What we're hearing is that people, in some cases, they might have said, we might have lost 1 or 2 customers, but the other side of that coin is we have folks telling us they're extremely busy and nobody wants to be in this time period, nobody. And it's heartbreaking for those folks that have been affected. It's heartbreaking. But the fact of the matter is, this is our livelihood, and folks do need this technology, and we are the ones providing it. And again, we use the word recession, or you use that word. The fact of the matter is, we're looking at internal at what we see from business perspective, Rich, and we're still growing at a very strong rate.
It is a remarkable thing. I'm hearing that from other vendors in particular. That everyone was braced for really bad news. And who knows, it could be coming and it's been delayed or whatever. But I mean, so far, it really does look like the channel has been remarkably resilient. That said,
Agreed.
from your perspective, I mean, what is for the people who are in SMB Alliance or any partner community like that out there at a time like this, especially, what's the value of being a member of a community with other partners?
Yeah, again, that's a good question. And it really is a reflection on life. I could tell you that here in New Jersey, I mentioned that's where I live, during Hurricane Sandy, all of a sudden, trees are going down in the neighborhood, people are running their house off generators, and you start forming little groups. Myself and 3 neighbors were making runs back and forth to the gas station to get gas to run the generators. You look at people that you can rely to basically support what you're doing in your family. And it's no different in business. I think that as it gets dark and the storm comes in, folks move closer to the campfire with groups and alliances. And the SMB Alliance is certainly that. I think folks really are looking to see what other folks are doing, how they're being successful, and also folks that are honest about the troubles that might be coming. What I've seen is that people have offered all their resources to each other. People in general want to say yes. They want to help each other. I think people are innately good. And that's really my observation in my journey through life. But I do think that people like to be pre-qualified and basically put into a group and say, you know what, we're here because we want to help each other. And when these times come, let's stand together. And these times have come, and this group is standing together. And folks have said, we get emails all the time. Whatever anyone needs, let me know. I have resources, use my data center, use my services, my expertise. We've had calls where the members discuss, what is it like to remote manage? How do I basically motivate? Some of the emotional stuff and the soft skills come into play, but also some of the solutions. And if someone needs something, I'm here to help. So really, it's like any community that any listener right now is involved with, and in which ones do you gravitate towards because it's of interest to you, and then the ones that you stick with are the ones that actually show you value.
So, I mean, do any, you've cited a few examples there, but I mean, do any stories, any particular examples kind of come to mind of partners rallying together to deal with difficulties?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a few examples. We'll start with the real human element. So we have a program in SMB Alliance called Geared Up, and that's our chance to really give back to all the communities. And we certainly don't just appreciate the SMB world of IT, but the SMB business overall. So we have been trying, and I think we've been very successful with sourcing tons of cool stuff for the SMB Alliance from local small businesses that could use, a nice order. And we've done several things local to Buffalo that I think those business owners were like, wow, this is amazing. You made up several weeks, if not a month, of my business by reaching out to us. In addition to that, we've seen members get on the phone with other members and say, you know what, I have never been through this before. And I had one member say, well, I've been through a situation like this, 3-4 times over, where things were unexpected, and this is what you do. Giving each other encouragement and confidence, as well as the resources and different services, that's really what this is all about. And that's certainly what Ingram's done. We were happy to have our membership. We were able to extend terms to them, and expand those terms. And that was really cool. And that was real quick. They said, you know what are the stresses of being a business owner today? Obviously paying your bills. That's a big stress. So what can we do to alleviate that day one? So along the way, it's about having empathy. And, I'm proud to be with Ingram Micro because we certainly showed a lot of empathy up front. But what's cool is seeing the membership talk to each other and say, you know what, this is what you can do in these situations. And also, by the way, make certain that you're talking and reaching out to your employees. A lot of the stuff that you don't think of, people remind you, you know what, that makes total sense. I'm going to stop by, or I'm going to send lunches, or the little things that make a business, a family, is really what we see from the SMB market. And those are the encouragements, Rich, that we're getting from SMB Alliance.
We were talking about how so far business has been hanging on or growing even, which is very good news. And some of that has been driven by solutions that customers have suddenly found themselves needing, working from home, et cetera. As the economy begins to reopen, as we sort of start to look down the road, are you looking ahead? Are the members of SMB Alliance looking ahead maybe to new, bigger opportunities that will persist, in cloud, in security, et cetera, as we go down the road?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And then just a reminder to everybody, look, this year started off fantastic for everybody, absolutely fantastic. And once we could get out of the situation we're in now with COVID, we're looking for an IT explosion. And what's funny, one of the funny things I've heard from our membership is that the folks that have not been listening to us about security needs, about cloud, about backup disaster, about storage, now they're going to listen to us. So it's almost as if the background noise of the IT consultant telling folks what they need for their business, and what is the worst case scenario. And when those comments were discounted in the past, they won't be discounted in the future. So we're seeing that this conversation will be the forefront of different conversations with budgets for these companies that we collectively are talking to. At the same time, the economy was strong. It was strong before this. We took a pause, but we're doing great. I mean, again, what I keep telling people is that certain industries are in tough shape, and we feel bad for them, and we're going to do what we can to support them. But IT is not. Having technology is a self-sustainable, life of its own that needs certain technologies to keep on growing, and that doesn't stop just because of uncertain times.
So as you look ahead maybe to the next 12 months in terms of SMB Alliance, I mean, are there milestones coming up, objectives, initiatives that you've got coming that you're planning towards now?
Yeah, so we're sticking with the same schedule, and we might need to do what you're doing, which is to add in more virtual events. I do think it's actually a good supplement to what we were already doing. We really, like yourself, we really like to get together in person. Now, obviously, that's going to change for some people. So we want to be able to offer, once we can start traveling again, go back to talking shop events we've had where we have 30 to 40 folks at a time, talking shop and going through the best practices. Those have been very successful, and those have been very popular. We got great feedback. I believe that we could add in virtual events as well. And we'll get a feel of how this goes next week. We'll get feedback. We learn from you. We're going to learn from our own event. Then once that's done, we can just keep on doing virtual events, because it's the information, Rich, as you know, that we need to get out to the membership. And the information comes from the feedback. So it's about having good communication. Then people said to us up front, hey, can you guys get an authority of how to get all these loans secured? So the answer was yes. And within a few days, we had a virtual event to go through, all the process and the paperwork had to get done. So again, it's having a good pulse on your community, or in this case, your family. And when people say this is what we need, it's for us to respond. And it's also for us to look ahead as well. You mentioned cloud and security. I mean, that's a given, and that has been growing, and that's more relevant now than ever. The world is has gotten a lot smaller, in a lot of ways, and obviously some of the bad actors are out there trying to get over on people. And how do we secure people's businesses? And if you don't, it could cost someone's entire livelihood. So it is extremely serious, and I would say that there's a lot of unsung heroes listening that have protected attacks on people's company. And what does that really mean? That's people's jobs. So at the end of the day, let me make sure to say thank you for all those folks that have basically had studied, had learned how to use technology, had picked the right solution, put it together, and really protected a lot of people's livelihoods.
Well, it definitely seems like today more than ever, being a part of a community alliance like yours is probably even more important, because it sounds like a lot of the people who are involved in your community kind of had an advantage going into this situation, because they had other peers to turn to rally and work together rather than figure it out all on their own.
Absolutely, Matt. It's like you playing Nintendo when you were a kid. Was it easier to play it with some buddies and get the best tips on how to get off that the Gunsmoke's board, or was it easier to go at it by yourself? It's as simple as, together we're always stronger, and it's actually along the way it's more fun. It's entertaining, obviously, and this is our life. Why not spend it with people that have the same exact interests, that are in the same line of work, that want to share with you? It's if you want to beat that level, Matt, you got to do it together.
That's right. And just make sure that if you do trade, hardware with other peers, make sure that you get it back, because
write your name on the back of that, right?
Right. Because I had some friends that never gave me my stuff back, and they disappeared and moved away, and that was never good.
If they're listening to this right now, give Matt's stuff back. That's not cool.
Well, I want my copy of Legend of Cage back. Anyway,
that's right. I have an extra copy of that.
That's awesome. Well, unfortunately, that's about all the time we have for this interview. So I want to say thank you so much for being here. For those who maybe are interested in joining the SMB Alliance community, where can they go? How do they get started?
Reach out to me directly. You know, I have the privilege of being the leader. Reach out to me. Let's talk about it. Let's see if it's the right fit. And we would love to welcome on. You know, we don't bring on a lot of members each year. We want to bring on the right members. So if this is something that sounds like you want to be involved with it, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation and see if it's the right fit for both of us. And we'd love to have the conversation.
Awesome. And how can they reach out to you?
All right, I was hoping that we'd have like a flash of my info, but Darren.Gottesmann@ingrammicro.com is the easiest way to start. Or I'll give you my number, 646-234-5840. Reach out either way. I'm not hard to find, and I'd love to chat with you.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Darren, for being here and talking about this today. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show with our regular end of the show features. I've got a museum pick and a tech pick for you. And Rich will always stare into his crystal ball and try to predict the future to sometimes hilarious results. Stick around for that. We'll be right back. And we are back with part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. It was a great interview with Darren Gottesmann. I really appreciate him sitting down to talk to us. Rich, anything about that interview you want to point out that was unique or interesting? Twice, by the way.
You know, great to see that community, you know, still looking for ways to keep people connected and stay engaged. You know, it's an important time to be connected to other partners, and so you know, you know, they had their event this week, and it was all online, and it's not nearly the same thing as pulling everybody together into a room, but they really did make some interesting efforts to recreate some of that atmosphere online. And yeah, it's not easy to do, but it's important.
That it is. So it was a great interview. If you didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing, I encourage you to go back and do that. Well worth it. And important to note that it is an important time to be connected with others. And if you're not part of a group or some kind of peer group, you should really consider trying to get involved with one. Everyone I've talked to who has taken the effort to be a part of a peer group has always said it's well worth it. So, Rayanne, are you part of any peer groups?
I am. I am a member of ASCII, and I do a lot of the, you know, online Facebook groups. And as a matter of fact, I did a webinar not too long ago with Ingram Micro's SMB Alliance group. So yeah, and they're an amazing group of people.
Good. Would you say it's well worth it? You get a lot out of it?
Absolutely. I get so much more dealing with other MSPs, and, you know, and the peer group, you know, mentality where everybody's there to help everybody else. You know, it just makes life, you know, easier and much better, you know, in your business. You're going to pick something up from somebody else, how they do something in their MSP, and it may apply to you, it may not apply to you, you know, or maybe you can take, you know, bits and pieces of some things that people are doing and create your own solution. And I think it's really important to, you know, interact with your peers.
Indeed. Don't take it from Rich. Don't take it from me. Take it from Rayanne. She knows what she's talking about. All right, we are going to move on. We are going to play a little game that has become quite popular here on ChannelPro Weekly. We call it 5 Questions. The premise of the game is we will make up 5 questions off the top of our head. That's the important part. We have no idea what we're going to ask until we ask it. And it could be about, well, anything and everything. And we're going to shoot those questions at Rayanne and see what kind of reaction we can get. Are you ready for this, Rayanne?
I am ready. You know, let's do this. I'm pumped.
All right, Rich, I will give the first question to you.
Well, thank you. Okay. I forget who it is who told me this, but apparently, and you would know better than me, Rayanne, if this is true, but apparently when people from the Midwest vacation in Florida, they get in the car, they drive down the logical highways to go, they wind up on the western side of the state. When people in the eastern U.S. Vacation Florida and drive, they wind up on the eastern side of the state. So you've been in Florida for a while, you've lived in different parts of the state and so on. Are the western beaches any different from the eastern beaches, and which are better?
Great question. And of course, I am biased about the Florida beaches. So the Gulf beaches are by far superior to the Atlantic beaches. The sand is softer, it's whiter, it's like, walking on powder, and it also doesn't get as hot when you're walking, from your car to the water, and finding your, magical spot on the beach. The sand is not as hot. On the East Coast, you're going to find that the sand is a lot more coarse, it's darker, and a lot more broken shells. We have some broken shells, of course, and also the further south you go on the Gulf side, the more likely you are to find shark's teeth. So you can, walk up and down the beaches, like down in Englewood and Sarasota and Fort Myers, and you will find tons and tons of shark's teeth just, wandering around on the beach. So keep your eye out for those. And
don't go swimming, because if there are that many shark's teeth on the beach.
Well, yeah, actually there's sharks on both coasts, because during shark mating season on the East Coast, it's really dangerous to get into the water, because you can see the news cameras, do take a helicopter, and they, you just zoom in on the hundreds and hundreds of sharks mating off the coast of, say Jacksonville or Daytona. So, I can't say that either beach is, more safe than another. We've got sharks in the water. We do, but they leave you alone for the most part.
So if you're an aspiring shark dentist, head on down to the western side of the state, so that way you can get shark teeth to do stuff with. All right, question number 2. What is your favorite way you've eaten alligator, assuming you've eaten alligator?
I've only tried alligator once, and I was not impressed. It doesn't taste anything like chicken, like they tell you that it does. So I've had alligator tail bites, and they were, they look like little fried chicken nuggets. They didn't taste anything like chicken nuggets, at least not any chicken nugget I've ever had. They were spicy, they were a little gamey. I suppose if you dip them in some tartar sauce, they're edible, but not my favorite, go-to snack.
So if you're ordering an appetizer for Rayanne, alligator is not recommended. Rich, alligator. Question number 3.
Skip the alligator.
So I have an accountant. I know accountants. For some reason or other, I have never, this is something I've been curious about for a long time. I've just never had this conversation with somebody. And I'll randomly pick a date. But I mean, tell me, what is April 10th like for you every year? Is that a 20-hour day? Describe April 10th to me in a typical year.
By April, and again, I think I've mentioned this, I have a very unique business. And so tax season is actually fun for me, believe it or not. I do enjoy it. By April 10th, though, I'm pretty much over it. So for me, April 10th is my extension day, because I'm not the type of accountant that is going to sit here on April 14th doing a bunch of tax returns. Your stuff is in the office. It's got to be in here before April 1st, or you're going on extension, unless there are extenuating circumstances. But I have worked at CPA firms in the past where, I was putting in, 70, 80-hour weeks. I would get to the office at, 7:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't leave until, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And maybe I would pick up a pack of crackers, to snack on during the day, just so that I didn't fall over, and pass out. But that's not my ideal way of handling somebody's tax return, because I can't say that I would want somebody working on me or, anything that belongs to me after sitting in an office for 12 hours or 15 hours, right? So let's say you've got to have your gallbladder removed. Now, do you want the doctor that just woke up and has, had his coffee, and is well, ready and energized and ready to go? Or do you want to have your gallbladder removed, at 8 o'clock at night after the doctor has already removed, a spleen, an appendix, and delivered a baby? So, to try to work on an income tax return, especially a complex one, after working for 10 or 12 hours, you're just exhausted and you're not doing your best work. So I no longer participate in that sort of nonsense.
So you also don't work on your taxes while delivering babies. That's
right. Yes, I highly recommend that.
Awesome. All right, question number 4. I'm going to throw it in a different direction. You are standing in front of the building, and you are getting ready to choose you want a sub sandwich, okay? And there's all of the choices are national sub chains: Subway, Potbelly, Jersey Mike's, Quiznos, Jimmy John's. Which one do you pick and what do you order?
Can we put Firehouse subs on that list?
Are they national?
Yes.
Then yeah, absolutely. So Firehouse subs. I don't think I've ever had a Firehouse sub. I'm not sure if there's one around here. What do you get there? Because I'm gonna go find and see if there's one around.
Find yourself a Firehouse sub, because they are far superior to a Jimmy John's or a Quiznos or or any of those. But the Firehouse subs, so they have a barbecue chicken with fresh pineapples, and and so you can get anything on it that you want. But generally, that is my go-to, because they'll make it right in front of you. They'll heat it. It comes out. It's all melty. It's all yummy, and they're huge too. They're like big. So you've got some for lunch, and then you have some for dinner, or a midnight snack later. And sometimes you need that if you're working 15 or 20 hours a day on people's tax returns.
Well, that does sound good, and there are 2 about 10 miles away. So I am going to go find that. I'm surprised I haven't yet. All right, Rich. Question number 5. Go ahead.
I've got one. It's not a great one. I mean, do you have a good one you want to ask, or should I ask this okay one?
You can ask the okay one, because I don't have anything at the top of my head at the moment, because now I'm distracted by sandwiches. I'm looking at the Firehouse subs menu.
Yeah. The one that kind of popped into my head, do you or do you not have pink flamingos in your garden?
I do not have pink flamingos in my garden. But I was thinking that I should probably get some. They may scare off, some of the, critters that like to eat my tomatoes, right? So I'm complaining about my poor office plants that, are dying from lack of water. But I will tell you that I spend an awful lot of time paying attention to my tomatoes. No, I'm not a pink flamingo kind of person. But here's what you will find in my yard. I have little frog statues. I got this thing about frogs, right? And as a matter of fact, I even have some, real live, frogs and toads hopping around the pool and the backyard. But so you will find little, frog statues and, frog planters. And, so I'm more of a frog person than a pink flamingo person.
And now, did you put the frogs in the backyard, or did they kind of show up?
They just kind of showed up all by themselves. Not the real frogs showed up by themselves. The planters I put there by myself. And we also have an invasive species of frogs down here. It's called the Cuban tree frog, and they're big frogs with these weird looking hands. And once they get into your garden or your yard, before you know it, you've got tons of them. So I've only ever seen 1 or 2 Cuban tree frogs in my yard, but when I'm sitting outside, by the pool, I can hear like little toads and baby toads, chirping all over the place. And sometimes they'll come into the pool cage and visit with us.
It sounds like frog heaven, except for the invasive ones. You never want any invasive frogs.
And you want to keep your dogs away from your dogs and your cats, because they like to chase the toads, and toads can be very poisonous to your animals. So keep your animals away from the toads.
dangerous, poisonous frogs. Never a good thing. You can even see them at the zoo. I've seen them before. They stare at me, and I'm like, no, you're behind the
I'll
glass.
send
You're
you
not going
one.
to poison
Do
me.
you want me to send you one?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Not for me. I'm good to go. Well, thank you for playing 5 questions. Hopefully, next time we have you on, we'll come up with 5 new ones. And the hook and ladder. I'm staring at the sandwich. I'm getting really hungry. I got to take this off my screen because it looks really good. Okay. Museum pick. So, Rayanne, I mentioned to you in the beginning of the show, and most people who listen and watch for a while know that I have a vast collection of, old stuff because I have a hoarding disease, I guess, at least as my wife would say. But it's fun because it lets me pick something and talk about it. So, I have chosen something that also did not belong to me, Rich. I'm actually starting to dive into some of my wife's old things that that I never let her throw away because that's just how it goes. But I am going to choose the Kodak EasyShare CX4200 digital camera with a little mechanical button here to open the shutter lens. And it's got a flash on it. It's got an optical viewfinder, because you need one of those apparently on a digital camera, even though you really don't need it because you got a screen. It's a really old digital camera, Rich, and I'll tell you a couple things about it. So this is a massively high-resolution digital camera, especially for its time. It captures 2 megapixel images. 2 megapixel, Rich. Now, there are older. I don't know if I have one, but I know people who have some old 640 by 480, digital cameras, like the really, really, really old ones. So this one was state of the art when it came out. But yeah, 2 megapixel, a 2x digital zoom, 16 megabytes of internal memory. It can auto-orientate the pictures. On-camera picture rotation is what it says. Uses an MMC or SD card. And a 1.6-inch preview color LCD. It does not say the resolution of that screen, but I will tell you it is very not good. Built-in flash, file transfer over USB 1.0. It just says USB, but I know it's 1.0 because USB 2.0 I don't think existed when this came out. And it came a little dock to put it in. Back when they gave you a dock. Here's a box for it. Still got the box. Might be backwards there for those who see. It's a big yellow box, but it's for those who are listening, it's a small-ish, but old digital camera, as you would expect. If you want to shoot a macro photo, you got to hold this up because that's a mechanical macro thing.
Oh, wow, I always wondered what that button was for.
Yeah, got to hold that up. Yeah, old. So, Rich, now, when was your first digital camera? When did you get your first one?
I was as you were talking about that, I was trying to remember. I remember it's a Canon. I want to say it was in the vicinity of 2005. And I would be really, I'll bet I still have it right behind me here somewhere. I'm curious to see, because I wouldn't be surprised if it was less than 2 megapixels.
Yeah, and for a lot of people too, their first digital camera was actually on their phone. Because film cameras were used a lot, really, even through the mid 2000s. But right around the end, I would say digital was pretty much the standard. Rayanne, when did you get your first digital camera?
I'm going to have to say it was probably around 2005 or 2006. And I thought I was it was the coolest thing ever. And so yours has a zoom on it, right?
A 2x digital zoom.
2x, you can go all the way up to 2x. I think mine did too. I know that it was a Kodak, but I can't say with any certainty it was the same model that you have in your hand there, but it sure looked an awful lot like it, so I could zoom in because, I think I had a Windows 5 phone. Was that right? Was that, so the pictures it took was terrible. And, so I'm trying to, go out and now I'm on MySpace. Now I have to take pictures, right? So, so I needed something that I could, take some digital pictures with. And I treated myself to a Kodak camera. probably around 2006.
Mine was a Toshiba was my first one. I was actually trying to find the model. I'm pretty good at remembering model numbers, but I can't remember it. And I got mine pretty early on. I want to say it was in the early 2000s. I'm pretty sure I bought it for a trip when I took a trip to, I think it was Cancun, and I actually ended up dropping it in the water in Cancun and frying it out, which was not good. But yeah, it was an old one. But yeah, digital cameras, they changed everything, right? And they had to start somewhere. And for a lot of people, even though these did not take as good of pictures as film cameras did, especially for a very long time, the convenience of and cost savings of being able to take as many pictures as you want and not have to pay through the nose to have film developed was a big deal and changed the way we all take pictures. Remember, Rich, when you were framing your shot and you were like, do I press the button? Because if I press the button, that's going to cost me $1.50. I remember those days, and they were not fun days.
Yeah, no,
Man,
absolutely.
you remember those days?
I do, right? So would you have like 18 pictures or 20 pictures on your little 110 camera, with the roll? So and then you had to go and get it developed. And so if you screwed up those pictures, there was nothing you could do. It's not like you could just, rewind and delete that again.
Yeah, you never knew if it turned out until you got the pictures back. It was always like a surprise.
Christmas.
Yeah, it really was. Interesting stuff. All right, so there is a reason, Rich, I chose a digital camera, and that leads me to my tech pick. So my tech pick this week is also a digital camera, and there's a reason why I'm going to talk about these, and it is the Canon EOS M200. This is one that I've chosen. I will put that up on the screen here for people who are watching. If you're listening along, just go to the Canon website and you can look at the M200. So I chose this one because it is it's their least costly DSLR. I'm gonna say one of their least costly DSLR cameras. This is a mirrorless camera, but it does have interchangeable lenses. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because Canon has released a beta version of a software driver that allows you to hook certain Canon DSLR cameras up to your computer and use it as a webcam. And as with the whole COVID situation going on, lots of people doing virtual conferencing, and webcams are very difficult to find right now because of that, because everyone's trying to get better webcams. Well, if you really want to have great image quality, you can easily hook up this particular camera. And there are other way more expensive ones too, but you can hook up this camera to a computer using that new software driver and use it kind of as a webcam, as well as also a nice DSLR camera. This one supports that driver, and it supports their clean HDMI output. So if you wanted to use it with a capture device, you could do that as well. So I thought it would be, for those looking for a nice camera with some flexibility to dramatically improve how they look on things like Zoom, this would be something to look at. What do you think, Rich? How many do you want?
You know what? I have a camera that I take out on the road with me. I think it's a Sony, and I believe I spent, or the magazine spent on my behalf something like $125 on it, because I just dole out a lot of punishments on the hardware that travels with me. So that's where I am. I want something that's going to take reasonably good pictures in low light, because I'm in a general session all the time, but I also don't want to feel guilty if I sit on it or whatever.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, this is a little higher, and this is about $600 for this particular camera, but or $500, whatever. But yeah, so up there, but nice and convenient for those who also want to make themselves look better than everyone else's little standard laptop webcam that's built in, that's grainy and doesn't look good. So, all right, well, that is my museum pick, the Kodak's old 2-megapixel camera, and my museum pick and my tech pick, which is the Canon EOS M200 the digital camera. Go and check those out. Rich, tell us what has been and what will be coming in the future.
Well, in terms of what has been, the place you want to go to find out about that is our In Case You Missed It column, which appears on ChannelProNetwork.com every Friday. It was written by James Gaskin, and this week he's going to be talking a little bit about some new storage products from HPE, Aruba is back in the news, second week in a row. This time it's in connection with a new edge services platform that they've released. Intel introduced some new processor, and they're introducing new processors all the time, but these are actually specifically designed for foldable and dual screen devices, some of these alternative form factor devices. And then we will also look at a very timely kind of do-it-yourself solution that James came across. If you run into the situation where you're on a Zoom meeting or something like that, and you get up and forget that you're wearing your pajama bottoms instead of pants or something like that, somebody has actually created a solution that will detect that for you and shut the camera off automatically. You can learn more about it in case you missed it. Coming up next week, and quite honestly, I get a little tired even talking about it. I mean, there have been a lot of conferences this year that have been moved online and rescheduled, and for all the obvious reasons. Well, it turns out that 4 of them are taking place next week. Cisco Live is happening. SolarWinds MSP is doing a show. Ingram is doing a cloud computing conference. Veeam is doing its annual VeeamON event. So lots and lots of online conferences from big names in the industry coming up next week.
So how often do you forget if you're wearing pants? I forget a lot of things. I don't think I've ever forgotten if I have pants on or not. Rand, do you always remember when you're wearing pants?
I'm pretty sure I cannot say with any certainty that I've never forgotten it, but for the most part, I'm well aware of, my full state of dress. So, yeah, so no, I don't really have a big problem about walking around without pants on, but of course I'm still working in the office. So I would have to walk across the parking lot and through the building to get here with that. Somebody is bound to tell me I'm leaving, walking around without pants on.
You probably don't need some IoT tool to point that out.
Not yet, but as I age, that may come in handy.
Well, Bill can't open the box, nor can he remember if he's wearing pants. Poor Bill. He's just having a rough time. All right. Well, that is going to wrap up episode 149. A big thank you to Rayanne Buchianico. Did I get it right?
You did. You did.
Yay! It's a miracle. From ABC Solutions. Awesome having you here. Thank you so much for being a guest today. For people who want to get in touch with you, learn more about you and your business, where can they go?
abcsolutionsfl.com. That's FL as in Florida. So it's abcsolutionsfl.com. Feel free to, stop by my website, check out our resources page, because I keep putting more and more information up there about, all of the CARES Act and the PPP loans and all of that other stuff. So I keep putting up, new information all the time. Check it out. And Rich and Matt, thank you so much. This has been great fun. Thank you for inviting me on here today. I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. So glad to hear. And you will definitely be welcomed back again. And so we always find out how much fun people really had when we invite them back a second time. so we will see that. But it was awesome having you on. Thank you so much. Everyone, please check those out. We'll put links to her website on the show notes page for episode 149. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Go there each and every day for news, articles, white papers, downloads, podcasts, anything, everything you think of all day, every day, to help you with grow your business, do things better, more efficiently. That is what we are here for. Set it as your homepage and go there all the time. Please subscribe to Channel Pro Weekly. We are on all the big podcast services, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, Spotify and Stitcher. And if you subscribe there, that's the best way to always know when we got new episodes for you coming out all the time. Leave us a good rating on a nice comment. That's always appreciated. If you like to watch on YouTube, we are on YouTube as well. Hit that red subscribe button and the bell for notifications, and you will always be apprised when we have new episodes for you to watch there. And again, also be involved in the chat. Make a nice comment. We like to read those and respond to you as well. Rich, if you'd like to follow you on social media, where can they follow you?
At Rich Free.
And Rayanne, are you on the socials?
I am. So Twitter is ABC Solutions FL, and I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Awesome. And I am at Matt Whitlock on Twitter. You can also follow Channel Pro at Channel Pro SMB. And we are Channel Pro Network on Facebook, Channel Pro Network on LinkedIn. We're all over the place. If you search for the Channel Pro Network, you will probably find us there. And we hope you will find us on episode 150 next week. We'll see you then. Good night.